Many of us have actually come into meditation for very personal and sometimes quite private reasons. In this audience, there are people that meditate, of course. There's also teachers of meditation. But many of you may not be aware of the extraordinary history of Pauline McKinnon, our next speaker. I've already told you a little bit about Pauline's formative place in our organisation, and I'm sure you'll agree this lady we're about to hear from is extraordinary in her vision and real passion to have worked so hard on this particular front. But like most of us, she's actually got quite a colourful past. And I thought I'd just lighten things up a little bit with the fact that Pauline, at the age of 20, used to sing leading roles with the Opera School of Melbourne. And this later morphed into today's Victorian College of the Arts. So she started with singing, and then she married Don, and they opened a small theatre restaurant, very trendy at the time, and considered themselves the proud owners of the 6th coffee machine in Melbourne, which gives her age away a little bit. Having recovered from 8 years of agoraphobia, she published the first known anxiety recovery story through stillness meditation, gaining lots of media interest, going public on anxiety, which was a pretty brave thing to do in those days especially, and she was definitely a first, helping others with In Stillness Conquer Fear. She's published other books for stress management and anxiety using stillness meditation that she initially learnt from Dr. Ainsley Mears. And for those of you particularly who don't know who he is, she remains the main student of Ainsley Mears, I believe, in the world, in Australia. He was teaching meditation based on really groundbreaking techniques for healing major illness. This extraordinary Melbourne psychiatrist was the first in the world to use meditation therapeutically when we talk about the Western world and the history of medicine, really. Way before John Kabat-Zinn and the others. So we're very fortunate to have his main student here with us, Pauline McKinnon.
I brought my own glass of water. Craig obviously didn't want to share. And mine's better than yours because it will sit there on the lectern. Well, Ruth, thank you very much for those lovely words, kind words. I guess I am a bit of a mover and shaker in a quiet sort of way, and so I'm happy to share a little bit about my journey tonight. As Ruth has already outlined, we've got a slide up there, yes, that's our logo of the tree to represent stability and constancy and calm, really. That's my centering cue. So Ruth has already outlined a little bit about my introduction to meditation through Dr. Mears. And yes, I had suffered from agoraphobia, the intense fear of leaving the safety of home, for 8 horrible years, a long time ago. And I was determined somehow to recover from that. I knew there had to be a way, but I had virtually lurched from doctor to doctor and therapist to therapist back then with no results forthcoming. And it was almost by accident that I came across Dr. Mears. And I'm a person who, when I'm seeking something new, I tread carefully and I look for integrity. And somehow I found that there and then with Dr. Mears. I felt that connection and that he really did have something very important to offer. I can't say it was easy at first because it's about life change and change of attitude and dropping a lot of the defences that I had unwittingly gathered for so many years. But I persevered with his encouragement, and little by little I began to regain my confidence and I began to feel change in my life. And all of a sudden, life was relatively normal again. And I felt compelled to somehow share this because around about that time there were a few little feeder groups happening. People were just starting to talk in little paragraphs in the local paper about, do you suffer from anxiety? And, you know, anxiety has always carried quite a powerful stigma and probably still does, despite all the promotion we have today. So I went off to one of those support groups and I listened to other people's stories, and they were greatly pleased to hear what I had to offer. So I felt it was time to publish a story and to really go public on that particular aspect of one's life. And of course we all have anxiety, but it doesn't always get so much out of control. And tension is at the root cause of that anxiety. And if we develop tension, which we do unwittingly, and it becomes our major defence, then of course we're giving the brain an instant message that there's danger afoot. And therefore the brain will start to send out horrible chemicals, or very useful chemicals, but they bring very horrible results, and people experience terrible symptoms. Terrible nausea, terrible lightheadedness, feeling as though they're going to fall over, high levels of anxiety in many, many situations, and panic attacks, and we hear a lot about that today. So I moved beyond that. I wrote my book, and that I know has helped a lot of people. Dr. Mears very kindly invited me to start teaching other people. And so, tentatively, I took that first step, and here was I, a sort of a middle-of-the-road woman in the eastern suburbs, setting up a meditation centre back in 1980s. Seemed like a bit of an odd thing to do, but I got through that, and people came, and people really got results. And so things moved to, well, better and better in that respect. I felt as though I was really making a contribution. And then, of course, in between all that, I had 4 children. I've now got 11 grandchildren as well, so there's a lot of youth around me. Those 4 children were quite young at the time, and I felt I really want to pass this skill on to the young, because that's where things begin and that's how people grow and so on and so forth. So I wrote a little book for children. I'm forgetting to use the clicker, but somewhere here, firstly, we've got Dr. Mears. I've brought his face in to show you tonight so that you can put an image to the name. And I'll just move on to one other point that I've missed. Dr. Mears described his method as mental ataraxis. It's very different to the mindfulness approach because it means an absence of disturbance in the mind, literally. So that's the cover of my little book, and I wanted to help children find contentment in their lives and to move beyond the trauma of anxiety at some level. Sorry, I'm just running out of hands here. Within the centre at Kew, I have some wonderful colleagues. I think 3 of them are here tonight, Lucy and Francine and Kay. Francine and Kay began to work specifically with children. When I published that little book, it precipitated a pioneer pilot study in a primary school out in Ringwood. And that was a really exciting thing and a very new venture, and it drew quite a lot of media attention. And it was just such a beautiful thing to sit there with a class full of children being absolutely still. And I'm talking 1990s, when this sort of thing was pretty much unheard of. We're going to hear more later from Janet and from Kay about what they're doing with children. But at our centre, Francine and Kay have worked with children over some 20 years, and we get wonderful results. And they've worked in schools for some 20 years, and the same sort of thing, bringing a stillness into the environment that children need so much. I might just have a little bit of a look at my notes to remind me of anything important. So, excuse me a minute, but I've got 4 pieces of paper. Craig only had 1. I've just got a little bit lost here, but we'll find it in a moment. So some of the great benefits that I've experienced from stillness in my life is a sense of calm control, which has really become my modus operandi. And I think when we're calm and we're feeling in control, then we function so much better. And obviously, it has fortunately led to sustained good health. I think I've learned acceptance because life throws out all sorts of challenges to us. And if we can accept those challenges with equanimity and with that calm control, we can work our way through them. I've also developed trust in myself, trust that perhaps I certainly didn't have in those years of anxiety and agoraphobia. And then, of course, there's the wonderful psycho-spiritual benefits, the awareness, the intangible qualities of insight and intuition and personal growth and things that we can't really always put into words, but we know bring us contentment in the big picture. And over 3 decades of working with people, I've seen this personal witness of people's change through learning to simply be still, to rest the mind in the same way that the body needs rest. Obviously, the mind does too. I spoke to 2 of my clients this morning as they were leaving, and I said, you know, what's the essence of what you've learned or gained from coming here over these last few months? And they both, without hesitation, individually and independently, said, happiness, I'm happy and I'm content. One of them actually added, my wife's really happy too. Okay, so this work is a profound privilege and a tremendous joy. My work also involves training others to teach stillness meditation, and all those teachers will testify to the changes that they've seen in their own lives as well. I wonder if I've got another slide here. That's just an image to bring, I guess, a sense of stillness into what I'm talking about and to sort of put a perspective into it all. So now looking at the future, our world today has brought many technological advances, neuroplasticity being one, and so we know that the brain can change. We know also that in these changes we have vast technological industrialization, and the price being paid for that is that many, many people are utterly stressed. I'm continually surprised at the number of young people who come into me saying, I really don't want my mobile phone anymore, or why do I have to be in contact all the time, or there's another deadline tomorrow and I'm just not coping. This sort of personal exposure, the deadlines, the instant gratification that's expected, and the horrendous traffic situations all put pressure on people. I find that a lot of people will then snatch at meditation. They might grab an app or have an online program event and give it a try, and it isn't enough. They really need much more. We all need education in balancing our whole being. And of course, people seek meditation for different reasons. It might be for spirituality, or it might be simply just for chilling out a bit. But most importantly, I think health and well-being. And one size doesn't necessarily fit all. So we've got to be flexible, and we've got to educate people in a lot of different, authentic, reputable styles of meditation so that the majority can gain. I think we need to educate health professionals. I mean, Craig's already on that, which is great, but I think there's more work there at a different level. We need to educate our leaders and our politicians to see value in human endeavour, human need, and human change. I think we need to research the therapeutic benefits of meditation for mental health, because that's a huge problem, as we know. Having said that, I think research has its limitations, because I think meditation might well be beyond the scope of research. Some things science may never be able to quantify, and I think we have to leave room for that, and that should enhance the value of meditation rather than negate it. I think we can use devices to communicate the value of meditation, but I don't think we should rely on them. I think it's very, very important to be in the presence of a teacher. and to experience what that teacher can give, and to make the commitment to turning up and being in a room where people are all sharing the same calm. Really, really important. So look, I think that probably takes me pretty much into the future. I look forward to seeing some of this kind of progress as I continue to teach stillness long into the future. And just in summary, I'd like to say, for me, meditation is a life art. Meditation offers positive change, and meditation makes life better. Thanks very much.
You certainly have the courage and dedication to carry things through. And raising quite a controversial point, I thought, at the end about whether you really have to have a teacher or whether you can do this learning of meditation online or through the telephone, through different methods. Clearly one of the big questions that hangs over this particular forum.